Yeah, this is a part of me, so. Good morning. Welcome to the SWAN Quarterly. For those of you who know me, I'm Rich Wolff, I'm the director of the Tinley Library, and I'm also the SWAN president for this year. So, as you notice, we have something new to do today. It's all the brainchild of Aaron. So, we do allow public comment after each one of the sections. Introduction of new administrators, guests today. Just raise your hand, stand up. Go ahead, Roger.
Hi, I'm not real new, but I have a guest with Megan Sparks, my adult services manager. She joined us in May. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Jason Solomon from the Tinley Park Library, just filling in for Tommy, who just had her baby.
What's your name?
My boy. So I'll be the acting director.
Okay. Moving on, we need approval of the June quarterly minutes, please. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Kozak, Thomas Ford.
Thank you. Second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Corrections? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? Motion carried. I will turn this over to Aaron.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Universal Amphitheater. Well, here it is, the late 1970s, going on 1985. You know, so much of the music we hear today is pre-programmed electronic disco. We never get a chance to hear master bluesmen practicing their craft anymore. By the year 2006, the music known today as the blues will exist only in the classical records department of your local public library. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, while we still can, let us welcome from Rock Island, Illinois, the blues band of Johnny and Jacob and Elwood Blues, the Blues Brothers.
Welcome to the SWAN Show, and you get a migration, and you get a migration, and you get a migration. Thanks for coming out today. This is our opportunity to do something a little bit different. I think a lot of the meetings we've had have been information heavy. So we wanted to do something a little bit lighter for you and start introducing you to some of the SWAN staff. So for those of you that don't know, we are broadcasting live from Burr Ridge in a beautiful industrial park. So I'm your host, Aaron Skog. Over here I have someone holding up cue cards just to help you with my monologue. And yes, this is absolutely ridiculous. Text card. To my left, she's probably off camera, is Edlin Lefevre.
Hi there.
Edlin's going to be monitoring the chat today. She'll be helping out with any questions that may come in. Also, Edlin has a very good laugh, so we figured she would add a little bit of color to today's
And it doesn't
meeting.
take much to make me giggle.
Yeah, there we go. So, in case you don't know Edlin works in SWAN Member Services. She really is in charge of helping the membership with delinquent patrons. And Edlin also lives in Elmwood Park.
Yeah, no accident there that I do collections and live in Elmwood Park. So.
She's the head. We got to turn to her. She knows the people and
Yeah.
who to turn to
Yeah.
make it happen, right?
Yeah.
All right. I owe you money later, right?
Yeah, you do.
So, all right. Well, this is my executive director report. I'm going to go over some news that's probably happened in the last 3 months. So let's start off with some ILS market news. By now, I don't know if you're aware that Innovative has purchased Polaris Systems. And then that was in, I think, in April, and then I think they did BTLS in May.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've recently heard that they just also put a bid in for Dunkin' Donuts. That's true. Apparently they did not have enough holes in their RFP.
Oh. Nice one, Aaron. Nice one.
All right. Nothing but innovative jokes from here on. Oh wait, this is being recorded.
Yeah, right.
A little bit more discreet. Going on in room B, also in Burridge here, is a video conference over the state administrative code. So I don't know if you're aware of these changes. A lot of people have been leaving comments on the blog. There's some comments in there I actually hope get written in the code, such as like the Kenyan bank account money for the states. So that code actually, once it becomes approved, becomes law. So that it's pretty important. There's a number of people, I think directors, that have gone downstate. Kathy Parker being one of them, to sit in on that. There'll be people also, directors and staff, attending by a video conference. So right now, I think where we're at with this is that the state library is going to go through some a draft. I think there's a draft revision out. I have not looked it over. It got forwarded to me, so we'll see what it looks like in the end. Has anyone been following that? Not too closely. Just something to keep in mind that this is going on. So thank you for that. So if you're wondering what that meeting is going to be like, and Rich, this is one that he and I will sit down on these video conferences, so I'll reenact that for you. So do we have Coal Valley on the line? No Coal Valley. Do we have East Peoria? Your mic is muted. They just turned off their television. So that is what you're missing.
That's exactly it.
Jane, am I right?
We're not lying.
Jane's on the member advisory group for Rails, and she sits on a lot of video conferences. Very entertaining from a teleconferencing aspect. So, what's next on my card? Oh yeah. I believe in March I was sharing with you that Cersei Dynex was going to be hiring 39 programmers. In June, when Cersei Dynex came out, they had repeated that they were intending to hire 39. I heard through the grapevine they have actually hired all 39 programmers. And that's pretty impressive that they would hire that many programmers that quickly. I was trying to figure out a little bit how they did it. Apparently they just went to the opening night of Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's pretty good.
You know who the villain is? No, it's all right. You're hired. Start coding patron-driven acquisitions. All right, so our SWAN Go Live, as you know, is slated for April 14, 2015. Somebody pointed out that it's pretty close to another significant date. I think a lot of public libraries will be contending with this, correct? So I think the way the migration is going to work is going to be very similar, where we'll drive 20 miles over the speed limit that night to get to the post office in time to get the migration done, right? For you all, I think it's a golden opportunity to do some additional training for your patrons as they come in. Oh, you need these tax forms? And here's how you deal with it. So make sure to prepare for that. I think it could actually work out quite well. So last week there was the Rails board meeting, and I don't know if you heard some of this. Kate and I were listening in, and I think we did hear Anne Craig say that she was really urging the group to consider that there should be one LSAP, I think it was, in one consortium. Rails has four LSAPs. There's 11 total consortia in the Rails area, so that's going to be quite a challenge. One of the other recommendations they had that you may not be aware of, they also said that we need to merge to one patron. So I don't know if you're aware of this, so we're really struggling how we're going to set the system this way. So it's going to have like a 13.5 million checkout limit and only 5 council games. Right? That seems to be what everyone.
4 holes.
Okay, so we were at the Kosugi conference, which is a Cersei Dynex user group meeting. There's another one that's going to be coming up in the spring, and it's being held in Portland. And just so you all know, all the libraries in Swan are officially COSUVI members. We did that for you. It cost $100. If you're considering going out to Portland for COSUVI, I got bad news for you. We're going to be training your staff. So, unfortunately, we're not going out to COSUVI either that time. We don't know where the 2016 one is at, but I would say if you're interested, you should consider going. There's going to be a lot of changes coming from Cersei Dynex over the next couple of years. You're going to find out more about their software, their enhancements, or you can just let SWAN staff go, and we'll tell you everything that we learned when we get back from the conference, but I just want to let you all know that. So, all right, the way this is going to happen today, I'm going to be focusing mostly on the migration. You're going to get to know a lot of SWAN staff. We have some new staff and some staff that you're very familiar with. We're going to be interviewing them throughout the morning. So we have our positions in the staff we're going to be interviewing will be Rebecca Malinowski, who's a special projects coordinator, Kate Boyle, member services manager, Karen Barr, our member services manager, Stephen Schlewitt, our IT manager. So they're going to be going over the timeline, the profiling, the data, and the training itself. So I've been going out and talking to libraries over the last several months. I've done in-service days and met with management teams. So let's see, I met with Downers Grove management team, Indian Prairie, Thomas Ford, we met with them. Homewood, we did an in-service at Homewood, Cicero, Woodridge, and then also I met with one board. I met with the Thomas Ford board and asked me to come out and do that. So that's been very rewarding, I think, for the staff to find out all the changes that are coming. We're going to review some of that today. Just planning to see again, if some of you are interested in this, I'm happy to come out. If you've got any in-service days planned or just want me to meet with staff on a management team level, happy to do that. So from this, we learned what is the most popular features coming up from the migration, and we're going to go over the top 10. All right? All right, these are the top 10 features from the SWAN migration that your staff have expressed a lot of love for. So number 10. All right, this is popular with the director. No more nickel and diming. You're going to have unlimited SIP2 licenses and other staff licenses and free beer.
Yay!
Very popular also, we found out, is the patron outreach that's coming with Symphony. It was also popular amongst library staff. There's a lot of homebound services, so that's the number 9. That is the most popular. Number 8, Blue Cloud Analytics. It sounds awesome. We have not seen it in action yet.
But we believe. We believe.
We believe, yes. That becomes generally available. They're releasing that in December, and since the go live's April, we're fingers crossed that they get everything right. It's going to slice and dice your data in many ways, and that was one of the things that when we did the strategic planning, one of the tenets that we came up with was free our data. So we want to be able to look at our data. So number 7, text notification and the robocalling, very popular. Staff were very appreciative of that. I was out at Woodridge and they seemed to be very happy with that. And they liked the fact that also we're looking at this from an opt-in point of view. The patrons could opt in if they wanted, if they just wanted print only, they could do that. Kate, print only? I don't know.
No. Robocalling, text notification, email, they got it all.
That's her goal. We'll see how we get there. Number 6, access to all my library's full text resources through the catalog. So this is the EDS integration. So this is going to integrate with your EBSCO resources, Gale, other third-party resources. We have a user experience team that's comprised of 3 library staff, and they're working with our migration team here. So we're building what will be training for your staff with that, and also helping us lay out the catalog and take a look at what this search is going to look like. So number 5, very popular, seamless ebook title access within the catalog. Yeah. Very, very popular, and surprisingly, this was not number 1. I would have put my bet on that, but you'll see what's number 1 coming up shortly. Number 4, mobile app for patrons. So this is using the Bookmine Plus. Big win for, I think, the consortia. It's a great option. If you like Boopsy, you can keep using it. If you want to continue using Library Anywhere, feel free to, and transition this at another point. We're not quite sure if this will be ready at Go Live. We're hoping it is. It seems like it may be fairly easy to get going, but let's just say it's something that we're going to have available next year, 2015. All right, here we go, getting near the end here. Number 3. Oh my God, we're going to have inventory. So mobile circ, very popular with staff. They like the idea of the mobile circulation. They like the idea that they can have a Bluetooth scanner. They like the idea that they can take a tablet and go out and register patrons, and the fact that combined with the outreach, they could go and do a lot of services outside of the library. Directors like this too. All right, number 2. No more locked residents.
Thank you.
The system is designed completely differently from Millennium, so it actually is not having blocked records at all as part of that ILS. So that was hugely popular with staff. I think a lot of circulation staff particularly have run into this issue, maybe other library staff. So maybe directors aren't as aware of this, but your staff are going to be very happy. And number 1, no more alternate. Well. It's water. All right, well, my next guest is someone new to the SWAN team, one of our newest members, I'll say. So I'm going to bring up Rebecca Malinowski. She's the SWAN Special Projects Coordinator. She started in May of this year and does have a background in project management. She also is a librarian. She has the MLS degree. So give us an applause for Rebecca Malinowski.
There she is. Hello, Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Aaron. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm glad you're excited. Did you actually think that you'd be in a talk show?
I did not. Conference calls I was ready for. A talk show, not as much. But
Okay.
we'll see.
Looks like you closed off the screen.
Oh, well,
All right, that's okay.
That's okay. We'll get
So
to
Rebecca started in May, as I noted. She had the daunting task of having to deal with not just an ILS migration, but an ILS migration for 77 libraries. She also had the joy of really not having to learn the Millennium system. So she's been immersed mostly in the Cersei dining system and has been coordinating our efforts. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
She's got a timeline she's going to go through. So first off, let's talk about the moratorium that we announced on a number of services. I want to make sure that's a little bit more clear to everyone why we did that. So I think that's loan rules, adjustments like that. So what's the story behind that?
So the moratorium is designed in part to give SWAN staff a break because we've got a ton on our plates. Just in September and October, we have over 20 days of training that we'll be attending, in addition to weekly conference calls and consulting calls. So some of it is just the turnaround time is going to be a little bit slower. I think that's specific to BIP services. The other major part is this I-type, loan rule, no changes in that area. And that's because of the migration project, actually. We've already completed what's called the profiling process, and we've talked a lot about that. Basically, we built everything that's running behind the system. We've mapped all of the existing loan rules and all the existing I-types from Millennium to the new Symphony system. So any changes we make now in Millennium won't be reflected in Symphony. So if we update your I-types now, the data's already being loaded, so it could cause problems at Go Live. So we want to make sure that we're we're preparing for as smooth a transition as possible. So that's
Right.
one way we're handling that.
So that might be a little frustrating for some of your staff that are, or you have new staff that want to do some cool projects or new changes, and they're running into this period where we're kind of having to freeze things until we get to the go live in April, because everything's got to go over in one piece. So, all right, so you mentioned profiling. That sounded like a major undertaking. Maybe you could describe what it was like building the system, now that it's done. Maybe we can talk about what's happening between now and April, but let's talk about the profiling a little bit.
Sure. The profiling took us, I think we had about 6 weeks, but the first 4 weeks we had conference calls with one of our Cersei Dynex consultants who walked us through the process. Because there's a lot of back and forth, like, okay, so in Millennium it's called a P-type, but in Symphony it's called a user profile. So we spent a lot of time like wrapping our heads around these differences, and then figuring out how to take everything that you've already built in Millennium and make it possible in Symphony. We did have our member services team swirled away for about a week or 10 days maybe, building the circulation map that's going to drive everything, and it's a much different process than it is
Right.
in Millennium, but I think they did a great job. Like, I don't even know how many lines. Thousands, Kate?
1,400.
1,400 lines in the circ map. So it's a really customizable system. It just took a lot of setup to get started.
Yeah, the customizable is something that we're really excited about, the fact that it doesn't have those limits that we always have in the Millennium system. However, it's interesting in the Millennium system because it forced us to work within sort of its constraints. It made it a little bit easier in some areas, but moving forward we'll be able to have a lot more flexibility. It sounds like from some of the setup, but not right away is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, at Go Live we want to sort of prepare for, again, the smooth transition. And to do that, we're starting out with a lot of standardization across the board. But as Aaron mentioned, there's all sorts of room for flexibility, whether it's in the enterprise OPAC or in the actual Millennium Symphony system. You see how
Yeah.
Symphony system. So that's one of the things we'll be looking at post Go Live. One of our many projects is how can we continue to customize the system and better tailor it to your needs as individual libraries. So we'll have a lot going on after April as well.
Okay, great. So what are the libraries going to expect during all these stages as we're going through them, getting to the April Go Live date?
I think one of the biggest things that we're hoping for from libraries is that they'll be very flexible. Our dates are firm, but the process, as we're learning, we need to collect information, and we don't always have a lot of time to do it. You may have noticed when we sent out the profiling survey, there was only a few weeks, or 2 weeks really, that we had for turnaround time, and we had a great response with that. All of our libraries got back to us in a pretty timely fashion. So there's going to be more of that, more of these action requireds that go out, and that will help us better tailor the system to meet everyone's needs. We'll also be giving everyone access to Mentor, the Cersei Dynex online training portal, coming in November. And while they're all self-paced courses, one thing that we're asking libraries is to plan for that time and plan to give your desk staff time to work on these in an off-desk situation. So that's something we can start thinking about now. SWAN is also working on some data cleanup projects. We're working with the Millennium consultants that we have to clean up our Millennium data, so when we transfer it to Symphony, it will be nice and tidy. So there may be some more cleanup info that comes out, but for now, SWAN staff is sort of tackling that in-house.
Great. So there is going to be some downtime within that timeline, right?
There is, yes. There will be actually 2 weeks of technical services downtime, and that starts on April 4th. So that's something else libraries can be planning for now. We will be offering some training during that time, and I believe your next guests are going to talk a little bit more about that.
About that training part, right? Yeah.
But that's one thing to plan for, is this 2 weeks of tech services downtime, and then there will be about 3 to 4 days of circulation downtime as well. So that's something to prepare for and make sure that we're ready to talk to patrons about, so they know that, yes, we did get that new DVD in, we just can't actually put it in the catalog until after April 14th.
Yeah, and I think what we're already encountering we think some libraries staff aren't really aware of exactly what's going on. Renee is laughing. Some think that we're just doing a Millennium upgrade here, but this is much bigger than that. And I've also heard that the offline circulation for the system that the libraries will be using during that period is going to be quite different.
It is. Luckily, there are some great online tutorials in Mentor, specifically on offline circ, and we're going to do a lot of training. Everyone's going to be prepared for that change.
Okay.
So we will be in offline for about 4 days, 3 days, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday morning we'll go live on Symphony and upload all that offline data.
All right, so when do we get to see Symphony?
When do we get to see Symphony? That's a great question. I think there's a lot of timeline questions. So let's actually take a look at what we've done already, where we're going, and when you'll get to see Symphony.
What's this tool you have here?
This is a timeline that I found online. It's called JS Timeline from Night Labs.
Okay.
Really easy to use if you guys need any timelines. Super fun.
If you're
too.
having trouble seeing this, we're going to post this online. It's a website URL. So this is something we've been building on to help illustrate how we're going to do this process. So take us through it.
Sure. The project start already happened. We have worked with our innovative consultants to extract our Millennium data and send it to Cersei Dynix. Our IT manager did a hardware review with our Cersei Dynix team to make sure all of our hardware was ready for the new system.
Right.
So that already happened, and then SWAN started our self-paced trainings in Mentor as soon as possible. We're all sort of at different places there. And that was a great way to prepare us for the profiling process, because we can't build the system if we don't know how it works. So we got a little preview of Symphony during the early training. And then profiling, as I mentioned, had 4 consulting calls, and these took place between July 7th and July 21st. We had our consultant, Margaret, who we'll be working with throughout the process and afterwards, actually. And she walked us through all of these steps, everything from these I-types and circ rules to things like creating your library profiles and asking questions like, do you accrue fines on days that the library is closed? So we answered all of those questions.
And Margaret's the same one who's going to help us set up the enterprise system, right? The catalog?
She's helping us with Symphony and Enterprise, and then she's also our Sure Start and Sure Sailing consultant.
Okay.
So she'll be with us for the 12 weeks after go live that we have built in.
And this is great. So that shows that Cersei Dynix is really thinking through who's going to be carrying us all the way through the Sure Start. And are you going to talk about what the Sure Start looks like?
Yeah, we can talk about that
Okay.
as well.
All right.
Our software has been installed on our servers, so the servers are ready for Symphony when our data is in Symphony. That also happened in July. And then this information gathering, you see there's an image here. Anytime you see an image, that's where member libraries are involved in one way or another. This was that survey we sent out about profiling. We sent it out, I believe, July 24th and requested responses by August 8th. That's when our profiles were due to Symphony. And like I said, all of our member libraries were great in getting that information back. After that, we did the building. SWAN staff had from July 24th to the 8th, so it was concurrent, to get everything mapped. And like I said, our member services team kind of took point on that and tackled all the circ stuff, and then BIB services, led by Karen, handled I-types and locations. So we were all had a hand in it, and we're glad it's over.
Yes.
So right now, so this brings us to today, basically. We've got our Cersei Dynix consultants, Damon, loading our test data into a Symphony installation. So we actually haven't seen Symphony yet either. We've seen the sandbox version that has like 4 dummy libraries in it, but we think it's going to look really different with all 77 of our libraries. So they're loading the data now, and we actually start our initial core training in about 2 weeks on the 15th. And the core training, Aaron, is for SWAN staff and then any trainers. So we've got our circ mentors who are going to be training circulation staff across the libraries. We've got our OCLC cataloging libraries that are going to be trained alongside of us, because they're going to be responsible for training their own staff in ways that are a little bit different than some of our other tech services departments. So that's happening the first round in September, and then once we get that core training and our data is loaded, we can start the data testing process. So that will start in-house at SWAN, but eventually we will be bringing all of our libraries in to do some testing with us, take a look at their data, make sure things are as they should be. So again, we've got an image here to denote that member library involvement. And that's going to start September 24th with our consulting call with Margaret. Again, Margaret is with us all the time. And that will actually run through March, right up until the end of March. In the meantime, as we're learning, SWAN staff will be developing the training program that all library staff, it's 2,000 staff members that will need to be trained. So we're implementing a Train the Trainer program, and we'll see more about that later in the show. So much more to learn. Meanwhile, SWAN staff still are learning. October is a crazy month for training for us. We'll be in training almost every day. In October, we were looking for a date for our staff retreat, and we had one option in October. So we're working hard on this.
And that options, we're just going to go and just lay in sleep deprivation.
We're having nap time. That's it. Enterprise will be installed for us on October 6th, and after that we'll start building all 77 profiles that the libraries will be using, and each library will have their own profile, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as SWAN staff continue to learn what that means to build them all. So the rest of October we'll spend doing additional system configuration. We'll have consulting calls. And this is really interesting. On October 9th, we've got change management workshops because nobody wants to approach change like this. We want to wrap our heads around it and be ready to lead our staff. So there's a 9:30 a.m. on October 9th session for directors and a 1:30 p.m. session for managers.
So in other words, you're going to walk into a situation and encounter something unexpected, right? Like something like today?
Right, and that might make people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Or it might be a lot of fun.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. In October and November, we'll also be starting our third-party integrations. So that's working on those SIP licenses. I heard they're unlimited. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
We'll be doing the ERC setup to integrate ebooks and other downloadable media into the catalog. And there's a ton of other configurations that are going to be happening. And we'll be sharing information on our website, in our SWAN comms, and at meetings like this.
And this is still 2014.
Still 2014. Yeah, this is only November. And in November, like I said, library staff will have access to Mentor, and they can start working on those self-paced trainings and really start to look at Symphony, see how it works, see where it's different from Millennium.
Okay.
So that'll be a great place to generate lists of questions so you're prepared for training sessions later. We'll also be configuring in December SVA, which is the robocalling tool that I believe you mentioned earlier. So that's going to be exciting, save some staff time.
Okay.
And then finally, in January of 2015, Symphony will be installed across all libraries on staff workstations.
Great.
So that will be a great preparation for when training starts in February. Before that happens, SWAN's going to be setting up Debt Collect with unique management services.
Edlin, you'll be involved in that, right?
I will be.
Edlin the Enforcer, we're pretty excited to have her on board.
That's right. It comes with a kneecap breaking.
Yeah.
And then finally in February, we're going to start library staff trainings. And I believe Kate and Karen are going to tell you all about that.
Oh, good.
But it's going to be from February until go live. So we'll be really 2 solid months and then a little extra. So there's going to be a lot of resources available to everyone. The last week of March, we'll be preparing for go live instead of going to Portland. We'll have a series of 3 consulting calls with our Cersei Dynix consultants, review all of our unresolved data issues, and get ready for the big day. Technical services will be suspended April 4th through April 14th. So that's going to be all of those changes to bib records, adding items, orders, acquisitions. All of that will have to wait until after go live as we send the data to Cersei Dynix and they're loading it in the new system. And then April 11th, circulation is going to be suspended. We'll be an offline circ, again, for that Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And then finally, on Tuesday, April 14th, we'll go live in Symphony. And it's going to be amazing. Everything's going to be awesome. New system. Everything is awesome.
Everything is awesome.
And as Aaron mentioned, we do have consulting that will happen around this time. Margaret, our erstwhile consultant, will be with us the day before go live.
On site, right?
And the day after.
So we actually get to meet her.
Ridge. Yep. And then we'll have weekly consulting calls with her, continuing after go live for 12 weeks as part of the Sure Sailing plan, to make sure that they don't give us this new system and then hang us out to dry.
Okay.
So we're pretty excited to work with them.
All right. I think I saw a different version of the timeline at one point. Are the dates changing a lot?
That's a good question. The dates that are the most important are those suspension dates, that April now I'm going to forget them, April 4th for tech services,
All right.
April 11th for circulation, and then go live on April 14th. Those dates are firm. All of these other dates, like mentor access, is the beginning of November.
Right.
So those might fluctuate a little bit, maybe a little earlier, maybe a little bit later, depending on how the project goes. But we're committed to a go live date of April 14th, and Cersei Dynex says they have over a 99% success rate with their go live dates.
All
So
right.
we feel really confident that we'll hit it.
All right. So we got the change management workshop. That should help you all allay your folks' fears. Hopefully they'll be excited. I've been going out, and as you saw from the top 10, staff are getting very excited about what's coming. So big adjustment for staff. I know we're going to be talking about training a little bit later here in the show, but what will this change be affecting for, like, what will the effect be for patrons? I think the library staff are going to need to start talking about this with patrons as well, right?
Yeah, and that's something that SWAN's thought a lot about, is how do we communicate these changes to patrons. We're excited about the Symphony system. We're excited about Enterprise, and we think it's going to offer a lot of new tools for patrons online. But that's not of any use unless we can get the word out to patrons. So one of the many teams that we're convening to help us with the migration is actually a PR and marketing team that Brandy Redfield, our office manager, is heading up. And she's pulled in PR and marketing professionals from some of the member libraries, so
Right.
Thanks for that staff time, guys. And they're going to be working on a communication and marketing plan to make sure that patrons know about all these changes, and we'll be developing some tools that we'll be able to distribute to libraries that they can use to help get patrons excited, help prepare them for these changes, let them know that their pin's going to be reset, all of those
Right.
details that could make people nervous as patrons. We all know that they can be just as resistant to change as anyone
Oh,
else.
for sure.
So we want to prepare them as best we can.
Yeah, and I think I should also share, we've been talking with some other consortia. One that went live in Houston. We learned a lot from them. We've recently had some talks with another group in Oregon that's also moving from Millennium to Symphony. Their go live is, we're actually on the same project timeline right now, but their go live is going to be in December. So we're going to learn a lot from them with their go live and what maybe they learn from that. So the networking is a big part of all this. So I've been hearing a lot about Cersei Dynex has to offer. I think we all have covered that. So from enterprise, analytics, mobile circ, will we get everything that we've been talking about at the go live in April?
So during this process up until April 14th, we want to focus on what libraries need to run and run well. And we want to make sure we're doing our jobs as best we can to make sure this, again, smooth transition. I'm going to keep saying it. We want a smooth transition.
Right.
So we'll be up and running on Symphony. We'll be up on Enterprise. We'll have some Blue Cloud features, but some of them we won't be able to debut on April 14th because they're still being developed by Cersei Dynex, or because they may be released before April, but not in time for us to customize everything. I know Bookmine
Yeah, they
Plus
won't be
is,
battle tested.
Yeah, Bookmine Plus is one of those things that it should be ready before April, but will it be ready in enough time for us to utilize that feature that gives us these 77 different installations instead of the one Bookmine, which is kind of a flat app across all libraries.
Yeah, I think the member library staff kind of recognize this, that we're excited. We want to make a smooth transition. We want to get the new stuff out there, but we don't want to bite off more than we can chew. We just want to make sure your circ's up and running, catalog's up and running. We are looking at the ebooks, right?
We are looking at ebooks. Yeah, we want to have ERC, which is that ebook integration, and EDS, which is some database integration. We want to have that up and running because we think that's going to be one of the most attractive things for patrons. So we want to focus on those things that are going to be the big sells. And then after go live, we'll look at collection exchange, or we'll look at additional Blue Cloud features that are still being built. And we'll also be doing additional training and continuing to learn more about the system. Like, we should be live with Blue Cloud Analytics,
Right.
but it's unclear. We don't have any training materials yet, so we can't start preparing to train the rest of the libraries. So that's probably going to be one area we'll be diving in with extra sessions post go live. So there's a lot to look forward to.
All right, well, that about covers it. Is there anything else you want to share?
I don't think so. I think I just covered a lot of things. I think I just talked for a long time.
Adlin, any questions from the chat?
Nope, not a one.
Not one? Anyone complaining about that they can't hear anything?
No, they said that they couldn't hear you too well when you were doing your monologue, but they say you can hear you pretty good now.
All right, well, I'll make sure to
Yeah,
shout a
will
lot.
you? working.
All right, thanks. Any questions from the audience before we have Rebecca? Yes, Kathy.
I'm wondering about which offline product we will be using when we're offline for 3 days.
That's an easy one.
It is an easy one. So easy, I'm going to let Aaron answer.
We'll be using the Symphony offline because that's when your data will be collected offline and you'll upload it into the new system. Do not write stuff down on paper. I think that practice started when people were frustrated with the Millennium offline product. We're going to be training you on this, so if you're nervous about it, you got to just take the plunge and use it. 3 days is a long time to be writing down stuff.
And I don't come from a CERC background. I'm from the land of reference and programming. But I took the offline CERC training using Cersei Dynix Mentor, and I was like, oh, this makes sense. I could do this. So as a not expert, I feel like I could handle it. So I'm pretty sure all of you pros out there will be ready for it.
All right, another question, Rebecca.
So for those of us who have fiscal years that end in April, for statistics, are we going to be running those? Because for IPLAR, we report up to April 30th. So will we have access to the report server still at the beginning of April, or how is that going?
For the Millennium system?
Yeah.
Good news is that we'll have access at least to the Millennium system all the way through the end of June. Okay. We won't be, we're going to kill all your logins so your staff don't actually circulate on it. But the report server is something I think we'll have to build a strategy around. So because you will be needing to pull stats, be able to compare things. So I think that's going to be fine. All right, yeah, in the back.
Yeah, just a quick question. When was that day of training, directors and managers?
That's October 9th. That's going to be our change management workshops, and you can register for those in L2 now.
So the morning sessions for directors, afternoons for managers. Any other questions? One in the back. I think that's Doug.
Yeah, would it be possible for directors to get access to the training modules prior to us giving it over to the staff, so that I know, for example, I have some CERC clerks. Some English may not be their primary language. Others are proviso area graduates, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I want to be able to go through these and assess, okay, I've got staff that I think will be very easy to do. Others may need assistance to get through.
Yeah, those are great questions, Doug. I think we're going to need to kind of funnel that through our next two guests, actually, who are going to talk more about the training and the mentor system. They've been working to get that set up, so they have a little bit more knowledge than maybe I do as far as how that's going to work.
Yeah, they're going to be our training experts, so
all right.
That's a good question for them.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Rebecca.
I keep waiting for that phone to ring. I don't think it's going to ring. All right, well, my next two guests are going to be heading up the training portion of our migration, although they're not going to be the only trainers, as we've already shared. So please welcome, we have Kate Boyle, our Member Services Manager, and Karen Barr, our Bibliographic Services Manager.
We've been back in the green room celebrating change.
Yeah, celebrating.
So, cheers. Change to the migration. Training to training. And to Matt Damon, who's sitting back there in the green room. I can't believe we got out here before him.
Yeah, Matt Damon's our special guest. He's going to be coming out later in the show. So thank you both for coming out, and I'm glad that you're celebrating at 10:17 in the morning.
Fortunately, we could sandwich this in between our spa treatments today.
Oh, okay. Obviously, you just got done with profiling.
Yes, we did. That was a lot of fun.
Well, great.
It was very illuminating.
Illuminating. Well, thank you both. We've been talking a lot about training as far as within the timeline. So let's dig into a little bit more about it. So we've already heard the number of 2,000 people that
Oh,
need
God,
to be trained.
you know what? When we surveyed everybody and had them put their staff in L2, turns out it's only 1,800.
Oh, really?
Piece of cake. No problems.
All right, so you've got it down to 1,800.
1,800,
All
totally
right.
manageable.
So
Right?
no
Yes.
worries here, okay?
Yeah.
People are under good guidance here from these folks. So we're talking about the training as far as, you know, when I heard this number, at first I thought it couldn't possibly be true, but you've got it down to 1,800. Let's talk about what's going to be your approach.
Well, we're doing a number of things, and you heard Rebecca talk about, you know, the training and when it's going to begin at the libraries and all that kind of thing. But also, in addition to that, SWAN Member Services staff right now is working on bulleted lists by role in your library. So your CERT clerk's going to have to be able to complete these tasks to function, you know, with Symphony. And then we're also putting together I don't want to say a booklet because it's going to be very involved, but basically simple bulleted lists of how you perform a particular function. So how do you enter a new patron? Step 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, how do you check out a book? You know, that kind of thing. So some very basic, stepped out procedures for them to follow. And they'll be available online and in a printed version if they want to keep it printed behind the desk, whatever. So that's a couple of things that we're working on.
Also, I want to mention, Aaron, that we will be rolling out some demo-style lectures in February and March.
Okay, great.
And we will also be using the train-the-trainer model for circulation and cataloging due to the potential large number of students who will be attending those trainings.
Okay, so you're looking at the trainer. Who are going to be these other trainers?
Well, they're staff members.
From
they're
our
mentors
libraries.
that we have had before. Some of them for circulation are the people that assisted with Cirque du Swan or Get Smart or Swanka. So we'll be using them, and believe it or not, we have even had more people volunteer.
Okay.
So we have people from various parts of the membership, and we will be taking the training out to the membership, so we will be going to the local libraries, and you'll be contacted by Rebecca as we, you know, move along our migration timetable here to set up sites and to determine dates on all the trainings.
For cataloging, the training will be similar, yet a little bit different. There will be a training team that will include SWAN Bibliographic Services staff, as well as representatives from the OCLC cataloging libraries. And those are Downers Grove, Oak Lawn, Oak Park, Morton Arboretum, and Tinley Park. This team will attend all the core training, and then we'll roll out training to the other cataloging staff. And we'll go about this in several ways. The OCLC cataloging libraries will be training their own staff on site. These libraries tend to have a larger tech services department, and they also will require some more detailed and intensive training. For the other libraries, we'll be offering demo-style lectures. We already have 3 dates, tentative dates in February, and then we will also offer a number of sessions here, on-site training in the lab here in Burbridge, and those will be happening in March and April.
Yes, and our acquisitions librarians will be coming in and have their training session right here on site, direct from Circe Dynex. And serials, we will be taking, the SWAN staff will be taking training here, and we'll again be taking it out to the membership. Recognizing, of course, that all of this is happening in February and March.
Right.
I think we have to acknowledge weather, and so a number of these classes will be available also as webinars in case we run into bad weather situations.
Yeah, that was one of the things I think we were talking about, the fact that we wanted to make sure the training was fresh, right, as close to the go live as possible. We're contending with these possibly bad weather months.
Right, and we also have to take into account that we're waiting for new releases too as we go along. And that's why we timed our go live at the date that we did to allow for these new releases that we know are going to be beneficial for the patron.
Okay, yeah. And one of them is that there's the version of Symphony is going to be, we're going to be coming up on is going to be a newer version, right? When do we get that installed?
December?
Yeah, in December.
January.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully December.
And that's going to support the patron signatures and the images.
Okay, and that was the primary reason for that.
Right.
Okay, thanks. So you get core training, you start your core, you get trained, both of you get trained, and other staff get trained starting September, all throughout October. Then you're going to build the training,
Right.
and you're going to be coaching people through Mentor.
Exactly.
Then you're going to be doing more of the lecture style training and lab training February to March.
Absolutely.
How are you preparing for all this?
I'm taking mega doses of vitamins.
I have booked weekly spa treatments.
Very good. This is all part of our wellness initiative.
Yeah.
So, Kate, you shared a little bit, maybe you've mentioned it, as far as you've been calling a SWAN SWAT team.
SWAT team,
Explain
yeah.
that to everyone, what the role of that is going to be and what libraries can expect.
Well, to assure that everyone actually knows how to work with the software, I am going to take SWAN member services on the road. I think Aaron actually came up with it, sounds like a SWAT team, but basically what we're going to do is in the course of 2 weeks, we are going to hit every SWAN library. And Renee's going to stand behind the CERC desk and make sure your CERC people know what to do. And Sam's going to go into the back and make sure that acquisitions and serials or cataloging knows what they're doing. And I'm going to have the pleasure of dealing with the reference staff and public services to make sure that everyone knows how to work with the OPAC and that, you know, how to assist patrons in placing holds, and actually for the reference librarians, how they will be placing holds. So
77 libraries in 2 weeks?
no problem. Mega doses of vitamins.
I think we're going to need some tour t-shirts, right?
Yeah, or hats at least.
Yeah, some souvenir. We'll probably,
Are you-
we'll
you're
probably have
figuring it out?
some merch, right? Some merch for our SWAN website.
Yes.
Throughout all this. This is a mug that actually Kate had made for me. So maybe we'll find a way to sell those.
Well, you know, we are going to have, as incentives when we go out and train people, we are going to have certificates that we can award them for completing a class. Now, when they complete a class online, they automatically get an emailed certificate to them, congratulating them on completing that self-paced course. But as we go out to the libraries and we hand out certificates, we're going to also have temporary tattoos.
Oh, great.
Of our health swans, yeah.
Not permanent tattoo.
No, not permanent tattoos. If you want a permanent
That's an
tattoo,
option.
you know, you got to take care of that yourself. But
That's
we're
right.
we're going to take care of the temporary tattoos, yeah.
Great. So one tattoo for each class you complete.
Sure.
All
As long
right.
as they're the same design, yeah.
All right. So what happens if we have some libraries that aren't fully prepared? It sounds very thorough, but what's your fallback if the library's not ready?
I am preparing a team of helper monkeys.
Really?
Yeah.
Are these the flying monkeys?
Well, they might have to fly in certain libraries, yes.
All right.
But yeah.
Or
helper
ride on a
monkeys.
drone?
Helper monkeys, ride on a drone, yeah. Or ride segways. I think that would look good. But anyhow, seriously, you know, with going out and testing everybody those 2 weeks before we go live, if we do indeed find some library that is not prepared, we have discussed this and we will just restrict their access. No soup for you. No, we will just restrict their access to production. Because you can't have people who don't know what they're doing and they're
Right.
actually touching the data and manipulating data.
Yeah, we heard a little bit of that when Prairie Cat did their migration, that they had more designed their training from a user login kind of type access, and there were some library staff that didn't attend the training, and then they were wondering why they couldn't get in catalog. And it's like, you haven't been trained, you don't know what you're doing, so why would we unleash you on a system you don't know how to use?
Exactly.
Very important, if we can't make that clear. Free your staff up. Talk to, if your staff attending and your director's not here, go to your director and say, if there's classes, we have to go. But that doesn't mean if they can't get out or can't drive that there won't be options for them. The mentor system is something to get everyone started.
Right, and I think with all the handouts we're preparing too, and certainly we are fully accessible at any point in time through a number of communication channels for anyone to reach out to us. And we're willing to work with anyone and do whatever we can to assist libraries. But, directors are going to have to allocate time for their staff to attend these things. It might mean that, you're just going to have to say to your staff, no, you can't take vacation in February and March.
Yeah, good point.
We're going to get the calendars out as soon as we can as to what classes are being offered when and that kind of thing. But just be aware of the fact that you're going to need all your hands on deck, just as we've told SWAN staff that they're going to need to be all
Yeah,
here.
we've blocked out for our staff, no vacations during certain periods.
No
although-
vacations for you.
I thought you said no more until next summer.
Pretty much.
I want to mention too about the cataloging training. As far as in the hands-on training we're going to have in the lab here, we're running quite a few sessions during those 2 weeks in April when tech service is down. So that will give staff the opportunity to come out here for the training.
And
Okay.
something to do.
Right.
So they won't be just, you won't have to worry about, oh, they're idle, books are piling up. Books can pile up, but they'll actually be getting trained.
Yeah.
Well, great. Anything more you want to share before I take some questions from the audience?
Not really.
Edlin, anything on the chat?
No, Aaron from Elmwood Park came in and said, "What is going on?" So I told him, and then I said, "Fun is always required." So,
All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, Aaron was on our ILS committee, so he should know by now to expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
Yes.
Questions from the room about the training? Mary Beth?
Will the mentor classes be available in December? Because I'm planning an in-service day where we're going to sit everybody down and they're going to take them if they're available. Mid-December.
Well, yeah, because they'll
Well-
have their logins in November.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll
I
have
thought that would be a
we'll
good
have
time
the,
to sit
we'll have the
everybody down
test
and
database,
review
yeah.
them.
Yep.
Keep in mind, that was one of the big things when we were sitting down doing the negotiation with Cersei Dynex, that as part of this 5-year agreement, we got mentor for the full 5 years. This is not just.
So I wanted to make sure it was
Yeah.
Unlimited.
available or
So, yes, mentor will definitely be available. You know, we've scheduled all the trainings in February and March because we want it to be fresh with everyone when we actually go live. But certainly, you know, we can talk and we can figure out things that staff can be, able to do at the in-service day.
So Doug's question earlier was about if he has staff and will he have access first to be able to kind of get a feel for everything. How are you, tell us a little bit about how we're working on the mentor setup. We did all that push to get data out of L2. How are you using that?
Well, that has been sent to Cersei Dynex, and Cersei Dynex is actually entering the 800 staff members within Mentor. And then we will be surveying the libraries to ask, who do you want on your staff to manage your staff? Because there is a role for management at each library so that you can view, and of course I as training czar can view everybody. But you can view your own staff and see how they're doing in completing their courses. We will recommend courses for circulation as opposed to what serials people have to take and all of that. That's not to say that someone who's interested can't take all the courses, because management within your library will be able to assign courses to individual staff members. And as we move forward, I can see these courses being a great tool as new staff come on. You can assign them to take X amount of classes or these particular classes. You could even use it perhaps as like an evaluation tool, and set goals for them throughout the year to attend so many self-paced courses.
I think that answered your question, Doug. You could be set up as the manager,
The manager.
or if you're a library director and you want to hand that off to somebody else on your staff, you'll be able to do that
Right.
too.
So is it an actual module where you can track what people have taken?
Exactly.
Yes. Oh, wow.
Yes, and you can see when they started, how far along they are in progress in the class. You can see when it was completed. They take evaluation tests after the courses, each course, and then they're sent a certificate. And it makes you keep taking the test over and over until you pass it. Yeah.
We
so-
like the sound of that to get things started early.
Well, I took circulation 3 times before I passed.
Uh-oh. And you
Because
built the system.
well, no, I played dumb. You know,
Okay.
yeah. If I was, if I hadn't paid attention, I hit this instead. Yeah. So.
Great questions.
The
Yes.
2-week bonanza period when you're gonna go out to the libraries, will that be like late March? Or what do you think?
It'll be like the first 2 weeks of April, late March.
It will be, okay.
Mm-hmm. Right before we go live. And I'm thinking 2 weeks, because we're fortunate in that we have a lot of libraries that are close to one another. So it's gonna be beneficial to be able to go from library to library.
Does that make you nervous that they're just going to show up?
Well, we have a building project going on starting in March, and I'm just trying to figure out, we're gonna be doing quite a bit of moving
Boy.
around the computers and things, so I'm just trying to kind of think about this.
Migration, building project?
I know, that timing, but.
You're a masochist.
Okay, I just wondered, but
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll work with you on that.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Thank you.
Great questions. Another one in the back. I think that's Nikki.
It is. I can't see it again. Originally, like with Millennium, we had to purchase acquisitions and serials. But in Cersei Dynex, we are all acquisitions libraries, we are all serial libraries.
Yes, no more licenses for individual modules.
So we'll bring in those acquisitions libraries that are already using it over. We're not going to bring any new libraries up on acquisitions at this point. This is part of that moratorium. We just can't bring up a new library and migrate that data. That window closed last year.
But after go live, we will have a whole new training program for acquisitions, and we will be more than happy because we would like to see everyone use the resources that are available to them.
Yeah,
to benefit their patrons and their staff.
One of the last libraries I think to come up on Millennium acquisitions was that Westmont?
Westmont, yes.
Yeah, and I remember they had noted that their library had grown and their materials budget had grown, and they realized at some point they needed the acquisition system to help them. So there may be libraries 10 years ago that thought this isn't for me, but it potentially is now.
Yeah.
Other questions? Well, great. Thank you both. Enjoy your celebration. All right, well, our next guest is Stephen Schlewitt. Stephen is the IT manager for SWAN. He's been with us just about, I think he just had his 1-year anniversary, so many of you have probably attended his technical user group presentations and maybe seen him at a number of our meetings, but we're going to bring Stephen out. We're going to talk about some of the third party and the other hardware stuff that we have to tackle. Please welcome Stephen Schlewitt. Well, Stephen, you told me you're a big fan of late night television. How are we doing?
Fantastic. It's really great, Aaron.
Well, congrats on your 1-year anniversary with SWAN.
Thank you.
You did not have a public library or library background in IT, and you seem to have adjusted quite nicely to that. What do you think of library technology thus far?
Yeah, it's probably the most fun technology that I've worked with.
Oh, right.
I've been in universities and private businesses and things like that. So I think these are the best things to play around with, like self-checks and RFID and things like that. So.
Have you ever worked for an organization that did a talk show?
Not a good one.
This isn't one of the not good ones, is it?
This is the good one.
Okay, good.
This is the fun one.
All right. Also, I want to congratulate you. You just did an RFID workshop. This is the first time SWAN's probably branched out into this. I sat through it. It was terrific. Maybe you can share with everyone a little bit how that went.
Sure. So I spent several months researching the RFID that we're using in our libraries. Essentially, I've kind of uncovered how the data models are configured and what we have at our different libraries. What I found really interesting is that most of our libraries are using a consistent data model, and essentially the data model is this template for how you say, well, this is the barcode of the item, and this is the owning library of the item, and different things like that. Despite the fact that all of our most of our libraries are using 28560-2 data model, and I won't bore you too much with that, but despite the fact that a lot of libraries are using that, they're kind of written a little bit inconsistently. They differ kind of based on the vendor that's configured them and how far back the library had done the configuration. So what I'm working on is getting a group together. We're going to have a committee, and it's going to be an RFID committee. It's going to be the most exciting committee of all the committees that we have in SWAN. And we're going to figure out how to kind of transition through it so that we get all of the data models, the way they're configured, working together, so that if someone from Oak Park goes over to Elmwood Park and they want to check out an item using the self-check, then it's seamless. It doesn't matter what the data model is. The technology that you use will read however we have it configured. So I'd like to work that out. We're gonna try doing something with that over the next few months. And then we want to create a SWAN model, so a standard SWAN model moving forward. And then any libraries that are interested in RFID right now, and there were actually quite a few, we're recommending finding a library that you really do a lot of circulation with and kind of getting one of their tags and then having the vendor read that tag and then kind of building our model based on that. We have all the libraries, we have all their tags, so we know the data models, and everything, in theory, should work around that nicely in the future.
Oh, great. So let's take this out of the geek mode a little bit more. So your goal is to make sure that if you have a library that uses RFID, like Oak Park, and then Downers Grove has their things, that both systems will be able to read the tags?
Right. So even if they are inconsistent, if they're a little bit different, my goal is to get it so that the technology on either side will read the tag.
All right. So as the group of libraries in SWAN starts to do more and more with RFID, they'll be able to take full advantage of all their tags.
Yep.
All right. That sounds great. So thanks for doing that. That's been something we've been talking about probably for the last year or so. So Stephen came in and took that over, and thank you for that. So let's get into the migration talk. So a lot of talk about third-party integration. The party part of that sounds like a lot of fun. The other part of that, the third-party part of that, doesn't make me feel too good. It makes me want to break out in hives. So let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, the third party, that's the last party of the night. That's no one wants to be at that party. No, third-party integration. So essentially, that's how we're making your self-checks and you know, any number of different applications that you use, mobile applications, things like that. It's essentially transitioning how they're configured for the current Millennium configuration, moving it over to Cersei Dynex, because they do it a little bit differently. Right now with Millennium, we're working really heavy with SIP2 connectivity, in addition to Millennium's own proprietary APIs. So that's like if you've ever heard Item Status API or Patron Status API, all of that is built in to Millennium. When we go over to Cersei Dynex, that doesn't quite exist in the same way. They have their own APIs, or they rely really heavily on SIP. So the goal of that part of the migration is we're going to reach out to all the vendors, see how they've been handling connectivity to Cersei Dynex, and we're going to document everything that we find, and we're also going to be reaching out to libraries. We did this a little bit before when we did the network migration, so we have a lot of the information already, but we're going to be reaching out to libraries and saying, well, this is how you're going to have to tweak a couple things so that it works on the new system. We don't anticipate really earth-shattering changes. It'll just be changing like an IP address or something, and we'll work with your IT guys to make sure it all fits properly.
So you had a pretty good practice run. That was actually, you know, when we did the network migration, so you used that and you built up a lot of contacts with that, right?
Yep.
So that's our vendors that you've already started to develop sort of a network relationship with?
Yeah, so we do have a long list of vendors that we can kind of lean on, get things done.
Well, great.
And if they don't, then I'll get
I'll be
Edwin
happy
to help me out.
Yeah, we'll bring the enforcer in to help out with that. All right, my hives are already going away.
Good.
Thank you for that. Well, you know, one of the other things I think we've noted is that there's so much change that's going to be coming on for our libraries. Libraries, as we know, they're not really, you know, too keen on surprises, unlike walking into a meeting like this today and getting surprised. So one of the things that libraries, I would say, is that have in common, they don't like surprises. Wouldn't you say libraries are a little bit like goats in that they don't like surprises and they just faint on the spot?
The fainting goats? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
yes,
you don't
we
want to be
wrote
like a
this.
fainting goat.
We wrote that joke. Stephen, our late night fan. So, so that we don't have to be surprised and have library staff fainting, what other changes can we expect on the tech front?
Well, so essentially what we're doing is we're working out any of the hardware changes that you might have to make. So in terms of like for patron cameras, so actually taking images of your patrons. Ideally, we'd like to get the technology that you have working with it. If not, then we want to get technology that's really common and easy to find and inexpensive. So like webcams, tablets. This is a part of actually, when we wrote the contract with Cersei Dynex, we wanted them to develop something so that you could just take images of your patrons using a tablet, or take the signatures of a patron using a tablet. So really simplify the process and really make it inexpensive and easy to just drop right into the system. So there's a little bit of that. In terms of other hardware, like desktop hardware, what kind of hardware do you have to use for your staff circulation stations? What kind of hardware do you have to use for the WebPAC stations, or OPAC, rather?
Yeah.
I'm actually creating a sort of a hardware series. If you visit the website, if you visit the SWAN Tech section, I'm really building that up with all the stuff that you need to know about the migration. So we're going to have kind of a series of, I've already released for desktops, so you kind of have, there's actually a table that tells you everything that is required for desktops and everything that we recommend. If you're going out and buying a desktop right now, we're not specifying, go to HP or anything like that. Just if you're looking at desktops, look at, kind of this quality of CPU and this much memory, and that should get you going for just about anything that you need to do. And it also has the very minimum requirements, so it's actually really low. You could run pretty basic hardware with Cersei Dynix, and it should run just fine. We don't recommend it, but it should be.
So are libraries right now using hardware that's not going to be able to run the Symphony system?
I think in general, libraries should be pretty solid right now.
Okay, great.
I would recommend checking out the SWAN Tech site and just checking the hardware section and making sure, but for the most part, your hardware should be fine. We do recommend Windows 7. I know there are libraries out there that are still running XP. Just XP has been retired. It should work with Cersei Dynix, but just know that Cersei Dynix will no longer be developing for Windows XP. So I think that's probably one of the big changes that you'll find. If you're running OPAC stations that have XP, that should be fine. It's just a web browser. It shouldn't make a big difference. But for your actual staff workstations, we really highly recommend moving over to Windows 7 or Windows 8 if you can.
Okay, great. So you mentioned the SWAN Tech series, the general desktops. What about some of the other cool stuff that we're going to get? Like you mentioned tablets. Do you have any specs on that on the site yet?
We haven't yet, because I'm actually I used to be an Apple guy, and I still kind of am. I'm playing around with some Android tablets, so seeing the integration with kind of the Cersei Dynix stuff, with the Cersei Dynix world. So I want to make a recommendation after I've tried some things out, and that's kind of the whole goal of the hardware series.
Right.
Is let's try it out, and then we'll make a recommendation based on that. So right now what I'm seeing is it looks like Cersei Dynix is developing a lot more. They're further along with Apple, but it is there for Android, and they actually just released their mobile circ. They have BookMine for Android, so they are developing on that platform as well. In terms of Windows, if you just have a Windows tablet that's not running a full-blown Windows operating system, there's not any support for that. No one supports that. Not even Angry Birds supports it.
Really?
I wouldn't recommend getting just the baseline tablet, but if you're going to get one of the Pro tablets, it's actually running the full-blown operating system. That works fine.
Good to know. There's some directors that have been approaching us already. They're looking at their budgets and wanting to buy these things now. So Steven's the person you want to start talking with, as he's noting he's going to be putting up all the specs on our site. Some of the other things that we're talking about is the whole VPN firewall setup. How's that looking like for our transition?
Yeah, so right now I know there are a lot of libraries that are still running kind of older VPN firewall, the Sonic Walls. That's the brand that we've been using. We've been recommending to go and upgrade the Sonic Walls when you do have it in the budget. I think the lowest level Sonic Wall that we're recommending right now that handles actually quite a few of the libraries is the NSA 220. It's a pretty bare bones firewall. It handles a VPN connection. It can handle basic connectivity. I wouldn't recommend it for a really big library that has a lot of traffic going through it, but it's pretty standard and that works pretty well. And then another thing that we're kind of working on right now is also the possibility of a virtualized firewall. So it doesn't actually exist.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. It's virtual. So if you are running a library that has a virtual environment, we could soon have the option where you can actually install this virtual firewall, and it can perform all the functions of your Sonic Wall, and it's really easy to work with. You can have backups of it and clones of it. I think everyone's glazing over right now, so I don't know if any of my tech people are out there right now. But this is a possibility. This is something that we're working on, and hopefully that'll that'll come along
Well,
soon.
what I like about what I'm hearing from you about that is that we're not just wedded to, looking at one thing, that we're willing to experiment and try some new things out. Where'd that idea come from, by the way, as far as doing the virtual firewall?
That was actually Oak Lawn. Marcin from Oak Lawn had recommended that. We just ran with it. He said he wanted to set something up in terms of a virtual firewall, and we said, all right, we'll take a look.
So you'll be hearing probably kind of things like that, where maybe we may pilot some things after our go live for some new stuff, experimenting with the new things that we're getting, and maybe from the network side. So this is really good news.
Yeah,
Stephen, you're my first question from chat.
Sure.
Okay, here they come.
Here you go. Will SWAN help us with this? Do we need to contact SWAN to get this started? When do we need to do this by?
Oh, in terms of the third-party integration and...
I think,
the Sonic
Sonic
walls. In terms of Sonic Wall, we'll be working with library. I mean, there's no actual cutoff. It's not like when we do the migration, your Sonic Wall won't work anymore. We do really want everyone migrated by then. That's our goal, is to get everything up to spec, because those older firewalls are out of service contracts. They're no longer supported. They're not getting updates. So that there could be, we could run into problems with those down the line. So our goal is by migration to get everyone kind of up to that point where we're all leveled out.
So you covered this in a little bit more detail during one of your tech presentations, didn't you? As far as the Sonic Wall models?
Yeah, and we'll actually be posting the Sonic Wall models online as part of that SWAN Tech hardware as well.
Okay, great.
So we'll go into that a little bit more in depth in there.
and then she asked, will SWAN come out and change it for us, or do we need to get our own IT people to do it?
I'll be working with the Versal guys on that.
Okay.
So we'll coordinate it through them.
Okay, good. Thanks.
And then the one other hardware change is also with Express Lane.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. That's actually been a very interesting project.
Yeah, essentially if you have an Express Lane self-check, I've mentioned this a bunch of times, the Express Lane self-checks you won't be able to use them when we do the migration, because the Express Lane self-checks are an innovative product and they won't be compatible with our Cersei Dynix system. So what we've done is we've actually been working with a lot of hardware vendors to investigate self-checks, what are different options, and ultimately what we want to do right here in terms of just getting libraries off of Express Lane, we wanted to find just a really simple drop-in replacement, something that you could just install over the hardware that you're already using for your self-check. If you already have like a 3M or a Biblioteca self-check, we're not talking about replacing that. We're talking about just the Express Lane self-checks out there, the custom-built ones that you might have by your circulation desk. Essentially what we've determined is a really great piece of software. This is the one that we're kind of making the recommendation on. We've actually looked at EnvisionWare's One Stop 2.0. It's the newest version of the One Stop software. It's fantastic. It's really simple. It's got a clean interface, and there's a lot of customization that you could do with it. So the idea is SWAN actually wants to make kind of their own custom build of the One Stop software, and then when we have libraries buy into it, we'll actually redistribute that software to the libraries that are requesting it. So the price is kind of dependent upon the group buy. We want to get everyone together for the group buy. So if you have Express Lane now, please reach out to me, let me know. Certainly if you want to go a different direction with Biblioteca or anything like that, we strongly, that's perfectly fine too. This is just the easy replacement. This is the logical move. So the prices are looking really good. If we get as many libraries as we think could buy into it,
right,
we could get the prices down to as low as $2,500 per library site. So you'd actually purchase a license for your entire site. You can install the one-stop software as many times as you want.
Okay,
so,
Steve, I got another question for
sure.
you. How much do you think the Sonic Wall upgrade will cost?
For the Sonic Wall, we'd probably want to work with them directly. So,
okay. Okay.
Call for pricing.
Is there a range you're looking at? It depends on the library need, right, and how they're using it?
Right. For the Sonic Wall, it kind of depends on the traffic that the library.
So there's like 3 models you're looking at?
There are 3 models, and yeah, we'll have those listed on the support site.
Okay, great. So the Express Lane, is that something you're looking at doing at Go Live, or when are you looking at doing those changes?
We need to do that before Go Live, so we want to get everyone migrated over off of Express Lane sometime before that. I mean, certainly there will be libraries that might want to use it right up to the last minute. Just know that when we do migrate, it's not going to work anymore, so those self-checks just won't function. Our goal is to start working on it as early as late fall, and actually have sort of a deployment in the winter, early January, somewhere around there. And we'll kind of do deployments all throughout the early next year. In terms of SIP connectivity, we have options for actually getting SIP license as well, so we can work with libraries on that, because obviously Express Lane uses the APIs, and you'd be moving over to a SIP connection.
So the libraries that want to transition now won't have to pay for a SIP license through Millennium?
Well, we can work with them on that, but,
okay.
But we do have a lot of SIP licensing options available, so I think we might be able to just get them
So
covered.
they just need to focus on the cost for the EnvisionWare one-stop?
Right, correct.
Great. So have you tested out the one-stop?
Yeah, we've tested the one-stop software here. We have an installation in our system room. And then EnvisionWare has also given us one of their self-checks to just borrow and play around with, and we have that back in our system room as well. And so I've been playing around with the software, but we've also we've worked with Elmwood Park with Aaron Sievers, and he's actually installed it on the circulation floor, and he's actually seen an increase by maybe 20 or 30% circulation just by using, instead of Express Lane, using the one-stop EnvisionWare software. So he said the biggest draw to it is just it's really appealing. It's really great looking. It draws you in, and it's really easy to use. So it has all nice animations for swipe the book here and swipe your card here, and you can check out through really quickly. So you could probably get a checkout done in maybe 10 seconds or 15 seconds.
So the Express Lane was more expensive, you couldn't customize it, and nobody really liked it. The circle was low on there.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, that's about right.
All right, so this new system's going to be wins on all three of those fronts.
That's right.
All right. Well, thanks for working on that. I think, is there anything more you want to share with us before we start taking more questions from the chat or the audience?
There's I could do a Steve Jobs one last thing.
Oh, all right.
So I'm still working on this. We haven't perfected it just yet, but I wanted to show you that it does exist and it does work. If I can get this connected, give me just a second here.
Ta-da!
This is Mobile Circ. So this is Cersei Dynix Blue Cloud Mobile Circ. I'm actually on a demo platform right now, so not everything works properly. Don't share my password.
I'm looking at that password.
Yeah.
I think I know.
You actually have to have it activated. So even if you knew the password, it wouldn't make a difference.
All right.
So this is actually what it looks like. So it's a really clean interface. Everything is right there. So let's say.
And you're running this on an Android.
Yeah, this is the Nexus 7, which actually is going to be out of date in just a month or so. Yeah, if you run it on any Android device, this is also kind of the interface that you would see from an Apple device. So it's pretty consistent across the board, and it'll make it really easy for us to make some documentation and actually walk you through how to use it. So let's see if I can find a user here. I think there are only 2 valid users in this demo version. So this is actually one of the Cersei Dynix users. And
yeah, I got to get on this.
this is Ranny. Yeah, we met him at Kasugi. You can break his legs.
I'm not today.
He's a good guy. Don't break his legs.
Yeah.
Makes it a little bit harder to read that way, but it works both ways. You could do that.
So it's actually showing, what's the photo that it's showing there?
So it's actually, that's the patron image. So if you have a patron image, it'll show the patron image right there in the record. It shows his address. He actually lives at the corporate center for Cersei Dynix.
Okay.
He has a cot there, I guess. It shows all of his checked out items there. Yeah, so it's a pretty neat tool.
What's that inventory that everyone's so excited about over there? What does that show?
So I haven't worked with that yet. We were trying to use actually one of the Bluetooth devices. So I don't know if there are any items in there. Yeah, we were essentially we were trying to get one of the Bluetooth devices to connect up to it, and it actually I didn't have any problems with Mobile Circ. I had problems with getting the Bluetooth device connected to the Android tablet and actually keeping the sync. So that's something that I'll be working on documentation on how to use that and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's a pretty terrific interface. It does work, so all the promises are true. Yeah, it's there.
So you're going to have recommended maybe some tablets, an iPad, maybe an Android version that you think that can't fail, recommended hardware for like if you wanted to use mobile circ for a laser gun and even a printer?
Yeah, and we'll kind of have those toys around here too. So
Okay, so that you
kind of
won't
on
have
and
to
off.
fend for yourself. You'll find out exactly what's going to work right out of the gate.
Yep.
Well, cool. Anyone else in the room got questions? Any more from the chat, Edlin?
Nothing on chat.
All right, question from the room. Roger.
I want to go all a bit going back to the RFID thing. Stephen, do you have an estimate for when you think you might have the model that we discussed available?
Well, we're going to start working on it probably towards the end of this year. I've still got to get the whole committee together. There's a couple more things that we're going to be working on in terms of vendors. Actually, I should mention we're trying to plan a vendor day where we're going to have all the vendors come out and talk about all their different pieces of hardware, so you can go and talk to the individual vendors.
So RFID vendors?
Yeah, so it's RFID vendors, self-check vendors, AMH vendors, and we'll have kind of a selection of them out here, so it'll be kind of like an ILA, and we'll have booths so you can walk around and that kind of thing. But to answer your question, for the committee, I want to work on it in the next few months. Sort of by the end of the year, I want to have it established, and then hopefully we can work something out for a data model by the migration.
Other questions? We're in the tech-heavy part, which I know all the directors love. Kim?
For the sonic wall upgrade for the libraries that have two, where we control the one ourselves, the replacement and the virtual one would be all the same. You wouldn't be controlling it in the future just because we're switching out.
For the virtual one, we would control that one. So kind of the same as we do the physical hardware right now. So you would essentially install. We would have just a VM that you drop into this really tech-heavy
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, so essentially you put the operating system, the pre-configured one that we give to you, you drop it into your server configuration, and we would manage it from there. So we would have all the logins and everything to it.
But the beauty of that would be, what would it cost the library with this idea?
Well, the plan is for it to cost the libraries nothing.
It would be nothing.
So it's all open source, so it should be completely free of charge.
So a virtual firewall that costs libraries nothing, but they need infrastructure to support it, so it's not for everyone.
Right. Yeah, you already have to have virtual infrastructure. And if you think, oh, well, I'll just put in a virtual infrastructure, the virtual infrastructure will cost you far more than any sonic wall.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it would
So
be better
if you've got it and you're not liking the idea of having these two parallel firewalls and having to pay for the second one that we manage, this virtual one might be something of interest to your library because it won't cost you much and you won't have any worry about these upgrades over time. Another question.
By virtual infrastructure, does that mean a virtual server?
Yeah, so if you have VMware or Hyper-V, those are the big environments that we'll be working with.
I do have a question on chat now, and it's, will there be OCLC connection integration at Go Live?
Ooh, yeah, I would.
That's for those cataloging libraries. Yeah, for our 5 cataloging libraries. For the other libraries in SWAN, the 72 other libraries, they're not connecting in right now to OCLC.
No.
So if that question's coming from one of the 5 cataloging libraries, sure.
Okay.
Any other questions? I can't believe we covered all your questions that you might have. Well, Stephen, thank you for coming out.
Thank you, Aaron.
And thank you. Is there a question in the back that we missed? So your question was that your library, Forest, has been using Express Lane, right?
Yes.
And you've made some tweaks to it. It seems to be getting a lot more popular with patrons and using it, and you want to be able to move over to the new system?
Yeah. I'm working on it.
So do you want me to reach out to you, or do you want to reach out to me?
Yeah, if you want to give me a call or send me an email, or I can talk to you at the end of the presentation.
So we went over all the pricing with the SWAN board at their last month's meeting, so they're aware of this. And Stephen has been reaching out directly to some of the Express Lane libraries already, right? Talking to them about maybe their transition over. So I don't think you've reached everyone, right?
Not everyone.
Not everyone. So that's probably why you haven't heard about it just yet, but we're telling you now. All right, any other questions? Well, oh, here's another one over here, Lori.
I apologize. My head of CERC wanted me to ask, when we have the new records in the new system, will it still contain the circulation data from before, like it's CERC 8 times in the lifespan that we've owned it, or is all that information gonna
Oh man, I'm going to have to defer to our data migration folks here. So we're talking about the data, right?
We'll have total CERC, and we'll have last updated instead of a last check-in. They don't have a last check-in, so it'll be last updated. And then we'll have our 2014 CERC instead of year-to-date or last year CERC, and it will be in a note field actually, because Symphony doesn't have a year-to-date or last year CERC field in their item records, but we wanted to bring that information over because we know that libraries use it. But then in Symphony, we'll use like Blue Cloud Analytics that will gather that data like cumulatively, so it's not physically an item record.
Yeah, so this question is probably looking at the circulation stats that are in the current system for Millennium. You want to be able to see, like, can we see how those items are circling, or is everything going to set to 0 when we move into the new system? We've been looking at that. That was part of the data mapping. So staff here were very alert about that, and they know they want to bring those counts over as a special field, a special note field in the new system. So at least you'll be able to see what 2014 looked like. Other questions? Good questions. Well, that brings us to the end of our show. My apologies to Matt Damon. We ran out of time today, so want to thank.
Who were your writers?
I don't know if I can reveal those sources, but all the staff worked on questions and wrote up the questions for me so I could interview them and we can cover everything. I wrote my own executive director report. Hope you liked it. This is being recorded, so if you get back and want to take a look, or there's information that was shared that you just need to hear one more time, this is the first quarterly that we've recorded, so feel free to watch it again. So Edlin, thank you for watching the chat.
My pleasure.
All right, I want to thank my guests, Stephen, Kate, Karen, and Rebecca. And Renee, thanks for managing the applause sign and my cue cards. Special thanks to IT in the back of the room. Well, I hope you had fun. This concludes today's quarterly meeting. Rich, do you want to adjourn it?
Sure, I can officially adjourn. You want to touch on the next part?
Oh, yeah. Hey, Anne, why don't you come up to the couch for a minute? Surprise guest.
It's unrehearsed.
So one of the things we've been talking about, and then for those of you who don't know, this is Anne Kozak. She's with Thomas Ford. She's a member of the SWAN board and is working with our ambassador program.
Right.
And at our last ambassador meeting, when we met at Tinley, we were talking about an orientation program, and we're doing that today. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Correct. Beginning at noon, we are going to have an orientation program for directors, managers, interested staff. We really opened it to a pretty broad audience because we felt that there may be people that have been here for 3 or 4 years and aren't technically new to SWAN, but there's a lot to learn. And one of the things that we felt was important to kind of get across was the collegial atmosphere of SWAN and how we've worked together and really had our differences with 77 different kids wanting to be in the front seat and learning that we have to compromise. So we are going to be having a presentation about the history of SWAN this afternoon, a brief one, and just kind of going over some background and orientation so that for those people that are interested, you'll have kind of a baseline going forward about how we came into existence and what's ahead.
So yeah, I'm going to be talking about kind of some basic overview of SWAN, some of its services. Anne's going to do the history of SWAN, which is actually turning out to be a really terrific overview.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It was very interesting. She came out for a few days and was going through our archives. And so we were looking at some of these dates. And one of the exciting dates I think that we're looking at is the SWAN. What it was before it was called SWAN. It was
The SLS Automated Cluster.
First library went live in June of 1975. So next year we'll be on our 40th anniversary of SWAN.
And that was ALSIP, so.
ALSIP.
Yeah.
Are they here?
They're on chat.
They're on chat?
Oh, good.
Let them know that they're the first library that went live. Well, they probably just heard. So maybe we'll bring balloons. So yeah, we're going to talk about budget, talk a little bit of what the budget process looks like. I'll do a brief overview how fees look. Kate, you're going to be doing an overview of our website so they know how to get around. And the L2 site, since that's become more and more important as far as SWAN activity. And Jim, you're going to kick us off, right? So anything else anyone want to know about that? We had registration for that because it is a lunch program, so we have lunch being delivered probably around 11:30 for that. So that gets started around noon.
Right.
And goes till about 2.
2, yeah.
All right. So we're looking at doing more orientation as we go, right?
Right. We're hoping to have an educational component as part of our, probably after the quarterlies, just because there'll be people in the building. Yeah, so watch for more program information on a variety of topics that we feel will help people be better oriented to SWAN and answer questions and kind of calm fears. And really, we hope to spark some creativity and some good ideas going forward. So we hope you'll all attend.
All right. Well, thanks for coming up. Sorry to put you on the spot. So any other? All right. Anything else, Rich? Do you want to call it?
Sure.
You got to hit the spot.
Thank you again for the SWAN Quarterly I've attended in 24 years. We're officially adjourned. Thank you all. Takes place.
Thank you. Good night.